Hey everyone, today we're going to be talking about Lord of the Flies chapters 9 and 10 and some significant events that happen in those chapters. So, to start off with chapter 9, A View to the Death. When chapter 9 begins, we are with Simon, who is still in the forest by himself. Now, at the end of chapter 8, he had that weird experience where the pig's head started to talk to him, right? And then he fainted. So at the beginning of chapter 9, he is waking up from this fainting spell. He's very disoriented and he knows that he needs to get back to the other boys. And as he makes his way through the forest, he makes another discovery, which is that the beast is really just this dead parachute man. So he realizes that this is what they've been seeing on the mountain. This is the shape they've been seeing. And he realizes that he needs to go and tell the other boys that the beast is harmless. It's just this dead body. He starts down the mountain and he's not in great physical shape at this point. He's very weak. He's staggering. He's still recovering from his fainting spell. So as this is occurring, Jack is having his first day as chief. And he's very different as a chief than Ralph is. For the feast that Jack is having, we get a description of how he's acting during the feast. A great log had been dragged into the center of the lawn, and Jack, painted and garlanded, sat there like an idol. So he is acting very differently than Ralph is as chief, right? He wants to be an idol. He wants to sit up around and have the boys do things for him. He demands them to bring him water. So he's very much a different type of chief than Ralph was. And so we have the feast going on. And Jack invited everyone, even the boys in Ralph's camp, and everyone comes to the feast, including Piggy and Ralph. So they are there, and Jack does give them meat, which is nice-ish. Nice, I guess, for Jack. And then we have this awkward moment where Jack tries to give a speech again and get the boys to vote for him as chief and join his tribe. And this time they do agree to do that. And after that, he gives the sign and says, "Let's do our dance, do our dance." And we have the dance that has been done before where the boys pretend to kill a pig and one of them pretends to be a pig. And this time it ends a little bit differently. So the dance starts just like any other dance. Roger is pretending to be the pig and the other boys are in a circle outside of him, right? Piggy and Ralph, under the threat of the sky, found themselves eager to take place in this demented but partly secure society. So at this point, there's also a thunderstorm brewing. So it's getting dark out. There's thunder, there's lightning, right? It's also dark because it's night. And so Piggy and Ralph kind of join in with the circle with the dance just because they want to be a part of the group as opposed to being by themselves. They join in, right? And then we have the beast enter. A thing came crawling out of the forest. It came darkly, uncertainly. The shrill screaming that rose before the beast was like a pain. The beast stumbled into the horseshoe. Kill the beast, cut his throat, spill his blood. The blue-white scar was constant, the noise unendurable. Simon was crying out something about a dead man on a hill. So this beast comes crawling out of the forest, right? We know that Simon was not in great physical shape. He staggers down the mountain and has made his way out into the circle, right? And the boys think it's the beast. We, of course, know that it's really just Simon. And at this point, there's so much chaotic thing. There's so many chaotic events happening, right? The storm is happening, so we've got all that noise. And then we also have Simon trying to say about this dead man on a hill, right? The boys are also saying their chant. So with all of this, right, they fail to recognize Simon as himself, and they just see him as the beast. He tries to get out of the circle, right, which is circling him. They've got their chant, they've got their spears. He tries to get out. The beast struggled forward, broke the ring, and fell over the steep edge of the rock to the sand by the water. At once, the crowd surged after it, poured down the rock, leapt onto the beast, screamed, struck, bit, tore. There were no words and no movements but the tearing of teeth and claw. So Simon tries to get out of the circle. He falls off the rock into the sand, and all of the boys just lunge at him, right? They get in there and they are physically tearing him apart. So this happens, and the way that the dance and the killing of Simon ends is because the storm breaks, and all of a sudden there's this massive rainfall. So this happens, the boys step away from the beast, whose blood is now staining the sand, and one other thing happens with this big storm breaking, and that is that the parachute man, who, as we know, is up on the mountain, the parachute gets caught up with the wind of the storm, and the parachute is brought down toward the boys. On the mountaintop, the parachute filled and moved. The figure slid, rose to its feet, spun, swayed down. It sank toward the beach, and the boys rushed screaming into the darkness. The parachute took the figure forward, furrowing the lagoon, and bumped it over the reef and out to sea. So, two things have happened, right? Number one, the beast that was the parachute man is now gone from the island. He's been taken off and he's in the ocean. He's gone. The second thing that's happened is Simon has been killed. Right? And so the chapter ends with these phosphorescence, these bioluminescence in the sea, right? Which is what this is a picture of. And it sounds kind of beautiful, actually, but it's very sad. So we have these shimmering lights in the ocean, right? Softly, surrounded by a fringe of inquisitive, bright creatures, itself a silver shape beneath the steadfast constellations, Simon's dead body moved out toward the open sea. So, obviously this is a huge event, probably the biggest one so far, because the boys' level of savagery has increased so much so that they have actually killed a human. And it's also significant because they all were a part of it. Even Ralph and Piggy, who normally are more civilized, were part of this crazy, chaotic murder. So this is a huge step, and we will see in chapter 10 how the boys react to the knowledge that they have killed Simon. So chapter 10, the shell and the glasses. What just happened? At the beginning of chapter 10, Ralph and Piggy are talking about what just happened, aka the murder of Simon. So Ralph is the one that says, that was Simon, that was murder. And Piggy is a little more defensive about it. He says, we was scared, anything might have happened. It wasn't what you said, it wasn't murder, right? So Piggy's a little bit more defensive. And Ralph is pretty steadfast about the fact that we did murder Simon. He says to Piggy, you were outside the circle. You never really came in. Didn't you see what they did? So again, he acknowledges the fact that Simon has been murdered. And we see him catch himself at the end of that statement because he says, didn't you see what we, and then he corrects it to what they did. So although he recognizes that Simon has been murdered, he's not totally including himself in the blame for that. He is saying that they did it, that Jack's tribe did it. And we have this continuation where, again, Ralph knows what happened, and Piggy is trying to reason it out and is a little bit defensive about the fact that they were involved in the murder. It was an accident, said Piggy suddenly. That's what it was. He had no business crawling like that out of the dark. He was batty. He asked for it. It was an accident. So again, Piggy says it was an accident. You know, it's not our fault. We didn't do it. And Ralph is just kind of defeated at this point. He says, I'm frightened of us. I want to go home. Oh God, I want to go home. So at this point, Ralph admits that he's frightened, which he has not yet done in the book. And specifically, he's not frightened of the beast or the island or anything going on there. He's scared of the boys. And he admits it's of us, right? So he includes himself in that. He's scared of what's happening to the boys on the island. And at this point, the group on the beach, Ralph's tribe, is just down to 4 boys. four big boys. There's still some little ones, but the four big boys are Ralph, Piggy, Sam, and Eric. And they meet each other after the murder for the first time. And we see how they kind of dance around the subject of what happened. Piggy says, we left early, we were tired. Sam and Eric said, yeah, we did too, right? But they also touched a scratch and a split lip. So the boys are physically affected by the murder because they were involved in this big mob, right? This attack mob. And so at the beginning of the chapter, it's mentioned that Ralph has, a facial injury. Now we see that Sam and Eric also have these physical injuries from the big fight. So it's obvious from their physical features and from the physical injury that they were in the fight, but they say, we were tired, we left early, right? And finally, Sam says, was it a good dance, right? And this memory shakes them all. And it's very clear that they all know that they were all there. It says the air was heavy with unspoken knowledge. But despite that, and despite the very obvious fact that they were all there and they all know it, they still do not say it. They stick to their story of, we left early. So that's what's going on the beach camp. At this point, Jack has made camp on Castle Rock, and he has a whole new setup for his tribe. So there are two things that we notice whenever we get over to Castle Rock. The first thing is that he has a boy guarding the entrance to Castle Rock so that no one can get in, no one can intrude. And the other thing is that they have this big boulder at the top, right? And so they've set it up with this big boulder at the top of the rock. And if they wedge this log and if they push on the log a certain way, the boulder will fall down and crush whoever is standing below it. So they have this safety mechanism set up, right? Jack is preparing for intruders. And then we also hear something else about Jack as a chief through the conversation between Robert and Roger. Robert says that, he is going to beat up Wilfred later. And Roger says, oh, well, why? What did he do? Robert says, I don't know. He didn't say. He got angry and made us tie Wilfred up. He giggled excitedly. He's been tied for hours, waiting. What? I mean, I get that, everyone should be doing and helping out, but there's no reason to tie Wilfred up. So a lot of you guys on the study guide said that you think that Jack's style is that of a harsh dictator. And a lot of you gave this specific example that he's hurting the boys, he's making them do things for him without reason. So it's clear that, again, his style of leadership is so different from Ralph's, and it's a little bit dangerous, honestly. After we get that little intro to the camp, we then see Jack holding a meeting with his tribe, and we hear about his reaction to the dance and the murder of Simon. And it's interesting because, unlike Ralph, Jack does not admit that this happened. He just breezes over it. He says, the beast came, disguised. He may come again, even though we gave him the head of our kill to eat. So watch and be careful. One of the boys says to this, but didn't we? No. So obviously one of the boys says, didn't we kill the beast? And Jack says, no. In the silence that followed, each savage flinched away from his individual memory. No, how could we kill it? Right? And so there's this weird thing going on where we're still referring to Simon as the beast. And at this point, obviously, Jack knows that it was not a beast, it was Simon, and that he has been killed. But he still refers to him as the beast. He keeps up this facade for the boys to keep them trusting him and to make sure that they are still scared of the beast, which could still be out there. And he says, how could we kill it, right? So he's saying that to the boys, and it's kind of an admission of him saying to himself, how could I have done that, right? How could I have killed Simon? But either way, he does not come out and say anything about Simon's death. And the boys, it's unclear if they all understand that it was Simon that they killed. For example, the boy that says, didn't we kill it? He still thinks that it's the beast and not one of their boys. So it's kind of unclear as to how much all of the boys are aware of what happened, but Jack definitely is aware and makes the conscious choice to not talk about the fact that Simon was killed and to still refer to him as the beast. The chapter ends with Jack and two of his savages going to steal Piggy's glasses from Ralph and from Piggy, because obviously they need a fire, and Piggy's glasses are the only way to start a fire on the island. So they have this plan. They sneak over at night into the beach camp, and we have Piggy and Ralph who are there with Sam and Eric, right, trying to sleep, and we have the beast show up again. A voice whispered horribly outside, "Piggy, Piggy." "It's come," gasped Piggy. "It's real." So Piggy thinks that this is the beast, that it's really come, because although we know that the beast was the dead parachute man, Simon never got to tell the boys that. So Piggy is scared. He thinks it's the real beast, and this fight ensues between the 4 boys and the 3 boys from Jack's camp, right? So we have this whole fight going on. Finally, the boys leave. Ralph's trying to check up on everyone. Is everyone okay? And then Piggy says they got what they came for, right? And we know that they came for his glasses. The chapter ends describing Jack. He was a chief now in truth, and he made stabby motions with his spear. From his left hand dangled Piggy's broken glasses. So obviously at this point, Jack has shown his bravo as a chief, right? He has gone and stolen the glasses. At this point now, Piggy, of course, can no longer see because he doesn't have his glasses. And the camp on the beach, Ralph's camp, can also no longer make a fire, which we know is very important because it's the only way that they may possibly get rescued. So, a lot of big developments in these 2 chapters. We have 2 chapters left, and there will be a lot of exciting events, of course. I asked some of you guys to make predictions about what you think is going to happen next at the end of the book, and there were so many great predictions. Some people think that Ralph's group is going to get stronger because they are civilized. Some people think that they're going to try to get Piggy's glasses back from Castle Rock. There might be another big fight between Jack and Ralph to decide who is the real chief. There might be another situation where they mistake another boy for the beast and kill him, right? Ralph's group might go crazy without having the rescue fire. Obviously, they can no longer make the fire without Piggy's glasses. Jack will hold Piggy as a hostage. The boys will all become more savage, and there will be more deaths. A lot of people said that there was going to be more deaths. Some people were specific in that Ralph will die, Piggy will die, Jack will die. But I think we've seen that the boys are becoming more savage, and we'll see how that continues to grow throughout the rest of the book. So we will check in again after chapter 11.